world. I've met people from Australia, France, Canada, not another country, but California, and just talked to somebody yesterday from Washington State. So yeah, we get people from all over the world, and a lot of people are there for just a nice hike, similar to me, just interested in going out in a beautiful place in nature and seeing what they might see.
Welcome back to another lesson of East Main 101. I'm your facilitator, City of Jackson, Tennessee Communications Director Kenneth Cummings. And for today, lesson 28, I am joined with Cypress Grove Nature Park Recreation Coordinator Darius Mullin. Darius, welcome to East Main 101.
Thanks. It's so good to be here.
I'm excited to talk to you about Cypress Grove. It's one of our most unique parks in the city of Jackson. Beautiful park, and I'm excited to talk to you about it. As always, I'll start off by reading the bio. Darius Mullin is the Recreation Coordinator for Cypress Grove Nature Park in the City of Jackson Parks and Recreation Department. He received his bachelor's degree in general biology from Union University in 2021. Among other things, Darius has previously worked as evening circulation supervisor for the Union University Library, a tour guide for Mark Twain Cave and Cameron Cave in Hannibal, Missouri, a project intern for the Missouri Department of Conservation, and upper school science facility at Augustine School. Darius is a Christian husband, son, and brother. Before moving to Jackson in 2017, he lived in Hannibal, Missouri, and before that, Houston, Texas. In his free time, Darius makes music, reads, plays board games, and does music journalism. Darius Mullin, welcome to East Main 101.
Thank you.
Cypress Grove Nature Park. Again, it's one of the most unique and most visited parks in the City of Jackson's park and recreation system. It's a beautiful place. Mm-hmm. And you come from Hannibal, Missouri. What is it about Cypress Grove that drew your attention to it to make you want to join the team and work over there?
Yeah, so when I moved to Jackson to go to Union, and I was a biology major there, as you read in the bio. And every biology major at Union does an undergraduate research project. And I had visited Cypress Grove a few times before, but part of my research project was going out and doing sampling at Cypress Grove with the permission of the person who did the equivalent of my role at the time. And so just going out there all the time, over and over, like every other day for most of a summer and part of a fall, just really grew to love the place. Actually, even more than that, I started going out there pretty regularly before that, and so I really grew to love Cypress Grove Nature Park. Like you said, it's a beautiful area. It's hard. It would be hard not to love it. I think.
I agree.
Yeah.
100%.
And so that's what drew me to it. I never considered that I might get to work there, but one of my professors tried to reach out to somebody in the city about doing a service project at Cypress Grove, and ended up finding out that the position was open, and he let me know, and I jumped at the opportunity, applied, and got brought onto the team. Very glad to be here. I'm very glad to get paid to be at one of my favorite places.
Hey, they say when you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's right, yeah.
You're getting paid to do what you love to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so Cypress Grove, it's outside, and your bio, of course it's outside. Duh, Kenny. Your bio reads that you were a tour guide at Mark Twain Cave and Cameron Cave. Those are inside. They're caves.
Yeah.
I've been to a cave. It was my 6th grade year in high school. We took a trip. The seniors took a trip to a cave. It was in Arkansas, I believe. First time, I learned about the G and the C's, stalactites and stalagmites.
Yeah. One's
the ceiling, one's the ground.
Yeah.
So working in the cave, how is that being a tour guide? Like, what is that like?
I mean, it's a lot of fun. I did that as a summer job, and then when I lived in Missouri before I went to school, I would do it part-time through the school year as well. And it was just a lot of fun. I mean, I love local history, I love nature, and I love interacting with people. And I got to do all three of those things a lot, all at once, every day, every tour at Mark Twain Cave and Cameron Cave. So I really enjoyed getting to do that. It was a great gig. For altogether, it was about 6 years.
So how does one go about wanting to work inside of a cave? Is that just you had a love for caves?
Yeah, well, I'd never really been to many caves before, but when my family was going to move to Hannibal from Houston, we went and visited Mark Twain Cave, and the person who became my boss, we met her in the gift shop, and she was like, you know what? When you move here, come let me know if you're interested in a summer job.
Oh, wow.
And so I did. I applied. I got the job and started, and liked it enough to keep coming back every year.
So how does that? What is, I guess, describe the cave? Is it a lot of? I mean, how long is the tour?
Yeah.
I'm just thinking. Most caves, it's just you go in, there's nothing more, and you're out. Like,
sure.
What does one do?
Oh, there's tons.
The
So the tours from Mark Twain Cave are an hour long, and there's more than you could fit in an hour. There's always more stuff that I wish I had time to cover. So Mark Twain Cave and Cameron Cave, and just for clarity, Cameron Cave is owned by the same people. It's the same company, but it's a different cave on the other side of a valley. It was discovered more than 100 years after Mark Twain Cave, so it has a very different history, and a lot of the geological formations are still intact, whereas Mark Twain Cave had a ton of people through it in its early days, and a lot of things got smoke damage or people broke it off and stuff. So, but because of that, Mark Twain Cave has a ton of history, and so it's an hour-long tour. Mark Twain Cave and Cameron Cave are both what's called maze caves. So basically, you have a big chunk of limestone, and then pressure caused it to fracture. And then all the fractures got widened out by water. And so you get this labyrinthine network of passages that, because they were all just originally fractures in the rock. And so you get some really fascinating winding passages. A lot of caves just kind of either go straight down or straight back with maybe some branches instead of being, there's something, oh man, you're testing my memory because I haven't given a tour in a long time, but there's hundreds and hundreds of passageways in both caves. I think, if I remember right, Cameron Cave is actually the most complex cave network west of the Mississippi River.
Okay.
So anyway, tons of history. Jesse James' name is on the wall of Mark Twain Cave. Sam Clemens' name, better known as Mark Twain, his name is on the wall of the cave.
So are these like underground, or are they just straight rock walking on level ground through? Or are you going down into it?
Yeah, it's in this one layer of what's called Louisiana limestone, and it's in the side of this hill. So you go, the gift shop and parking lot are in the valley, and then you leave the gift shop and go into the side of the hill. So it's all pretty level, but it's still underground because the ground goes up.
Right. Okay. So from the labyrinth maze at the caves to Cypress Grove, it's not necessarily a maze, but the boardwalk.
Sure.
It's a 1.4 miles. I'm not for sure exactly. You would probably, of course you would know. You're the recreation coordinator. But the boardwalk, starting from the visitor center at Cypress Grove, it goes around to this lake, and then you can go around more to a sightseeing tower. What is it about Cypress Grove that we talked about what made you want to go there, but what do you love the most about being out there at Cypress Grove?
Yeah, it's just a beautiful area, to be surrounded by nature in general, but personally, I'm just a sucker for wetlands, and Cypress Grove is a wetland ecosystem. It's also a forest ecosystem, so it's a wetland, it's a bottomland forest, so it's both, which is really cool. So you get the best of both worlds. And so I love getting to be surrounded by that all the time. I love not ever knowing what critters I'm going to see in a day. Just on Tuesday of this week, I was walking the boardwalk and I saw a swamp rabbit, I saw a barred owl, and I saw a raccoon all in like 15 minutes. That doesn't happen every day, but you just never know when that's going to happen. So
I've got little rabbits around where I live, but I've never heard of a swamp rabbit.
Yeah.
What is a swamp rabbit?
Yeah, the main kind of rabbit that you see are the little cottontails.
Right.
Swamp rabbits are just, I think they're in the same group of rabbits as the cottontail, if I remember right when I looked it up, but they're just a little bigger, they're a little bit darker, and apparently I've never seen one close enough to see this, but apparently their nails are a little bit longer. I guess it helps with attraction.
And so when you see these new critters out there, You can't. I'm sure you probably can't catch them like right off. You see them.
Yeah.
Do you go back and look them up even more just to do research on it?
For sure. If I can take a picture, I will. A lot of times it's too far away to get a good, especially birds. Very difficult to get a phone camera picture of it. Mm-hmm. But if it's an insect, I'll normally try to get a close up picture of it. A lot of times, if I have a good picture, the first thing I'll do is I'll upload it to this app called iNaturalist, which is like naturalist with I at the beginning, like iPhone or something. Okay. And it's just an app that you can share things that you see out in nature with other people. And one of the best things that comes from that is that it has an algorithm that guesses what you saw based on other photos that have been identified. Mm-hmm. And so it'll guess based on similarity to other photos what you're looking at. But then other people can come along and give you another guess as what you saw. So maybe you can say, I took this picture and I know it's some kind of mammal, but I don't know what, and the AI doesn't help. And then some mammal expert says, oh, well, this is totally a swamp rabbit. I don't know.
So it's just a group of people who love nature and just help out with identifying.
Yeah, and different people use iNaturalist different ways. So some people get on there and that's all they do is identify other people's pictures. Other people like me mostly just use it as a way to chronicle everything that I see and then try to hone the identification of things that I see. So sometimes I'll see something and not know what it is. I'll take a picture and, maybe I don't really care enough to try to like get on, bugguide.com or something and figure it out. But I'll just take a picture, post it on iNaturalist, and then a year later, somebody will say, oh, this is this particular type of wasp or something. And I'm like, oh, cool. That's great to know.
And again, with Cypress Grove being such a unique place with critters like swamp rabbits, the visitors, we have tons of visitors who come out to Cypress Grove, not just from Jackson, but from all over. Yeah. We get notifications, on our social media of Cypress Grove, people leaving reviews. They love it. And from you've been there it's been less than a year. So
it's been a little more than a year.
A little more than a year.
Yeah, started February of 24.
Okay, February 24, just over. So congratulations.
Just barely.
Congratulations on your first year.
Thanks.
The visitors that come through, what do you get from them? Do you help out with tours? It's not much you can tour, but do you help out with giving them information and when they come, what are some of the things that they are looking for? Or if they're not even looking for anything, just to come out and have a good time, what are some of the things that you help them out with?
Yeah, we get people from all over the world. I've met people from Australia, France, Canada, not another country, but California, and just talked to somebody yesterday from Washington State. So we get people from all over the world, and a lot of people are there for just a nice hike, similar to me, just interested in going out in a beautiful place in nature and seeing what they might see. A lot of people come out specifically for the solitude of being by themselves in a peaceful area.
That's
me. It's a great place to do that. And so a lot of people just come out and walk to have some time to themselves or take a phone call or something. I answer a lot of questions about just kind of like the basics of like what's here, how far of a walk is it? People will sometimes say, hey, I saw this snake, what is it? Or I saw this bird, what do you think it is? A lot of people ask about our raptor center, which is where we house non-releasable birds of prey. So people ask about that, and I can't remember what your question actually was at this point.
I was just essentially when the visitors come, first, how does that make you feel to see so many visitors from all over the world? You say from Canada, from different states. How does that make you feel to be able to interact with them?
It's great. I love getting them. Like I said, I love interacting with people, and so I love when people stop by and talk to me, tell me where they're from, or what they're up to, what they saw, what they're hoping to see. I just love interacting with the public. And so, takes me back to my tour guide days, Christy told me the other day that we get something like 17,000 people through the park. And we had 17,000 in visits in 2024 as an estimate. And so lots of people through the park. And I love getting to talk to them. I love being able to answer questions, and lots of people ask about the birds that we have in the Raptor Center, but people ask about all sorts of things, and there's so much nature that exists, and so I love getting just a plethora of topics that people might be interested in and getting to connect on that level.
And you mentioned the birds. So
Yeah,
first off, I just want to say that these are not Jurassic Park raptors.
Yes.
When I first got here back in 2010, I visited Cypress Grove and I walked, and I'll tell the story after we talk about the Raptor Center. The Raptor Center, it's non-releasable birds of prey.
That's right.
And we have 4 or 5 towers. How many towers?
We have 6 enclosures, and then there's a building at the very front of the Raptor Center that actually has an enclosure in it. So up to 7 enclosures total.
So why are they called raptors?
Yeah, raptor comes from the Latin word that means to seize, to grab. And it refers to their big, strong talons that they have, because they're just adept at grabbing things. And so the birds were named before the velociraptors and such, right? So birds have been being called raptors since before dinosaurs were being discovered.
Did not know that. Before Jurassic Park, I knew about dinosaurs, but raptors weren't really a thing to me until Jurassic Park.
Well, tons of people. One time I told a friend of mine that we had a Raptor Center, and he laughed because he thought I was joking. And I was like, no, like actual raptors, not velociraptors.
Right. So, and just to clear that up, when he says raptors, it's not actual dinosaurs or velociraptors.
Yeah.
They're birds. Are raptors the type of birds, or is raptor like a generic term for different types of birds?
Yeah, it's a group of birds with similar features, but it's a pretty broad group. So you're going to have things like peregrine falcons, you're going to have eagles, you're going to have hawks, owls, even like turkey vultures, and vultures are technically raptors as well. And then of course there's tons of all sorts of stuff over in other continents that I don't really know about.
So when visitors come and you tell them about the Raptor Center, do some of them have that look like, what do you mean raptors?
Yeah.
Or do they know what raptors are?
Well, most of the time, the way it goes is I'm like, and down the boardwalk, we have our Raptor Center, which is where we house non-releasable birds of prey. And then I think people make the connection themselves. They're like, birds of prey, I know what that is.
Right.
Or they'll ask a follow-up question.
So is like follow-up question is like what I have, why do they call them raptors?
Yeah. And people don't actually ask that super often, actually. But I have had it asked enough times that I went and looked up the etymology of it, and it comes from Latin.
So it's Cypress Grove again. We got swamp rabbits, we've got raptors, non-releasable birds of prey.
Yeah.
And one thing that I've learned about you with Cypress Grove when you, was with Union. When you were with Union, you did a research thing out there. And one thing I learned is that you discovered a new species of wasp. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I didn't do it just single-handedly.
Okay.
What
so you mean to tell me you didn't see a wasp pick it up and be like, hey,
this is new. No, it's a much more complicated process than that.
Okay.
Would that it was so easy. What happened is my research mentor is Dr. Jeremy Bloschke at Union in the biology department, and he had worked with some students in the past who had collected some crickets that had these interesting little larvae living on the outside of them. They're wasp larvae. The group is called Rapallosomatid wasps, but we colloquially call them cricket assassins because they only parasitize crickets.
Okay.
So what they do is they lay their eggs on the outside of the cricket. I'm just giving you this background so then I can tell you what I did.
Okay.
They lay their egg on the cricket, and then the egg hatches, and the larva, instead of eating a plant like a caterpillar larva or something, it eats the cricket. It sucks its juices out a little bit at a time, goes through its whole life, and when it's ready to turn into a pupa, so like the equivalent of a caterpillar spinning its chrysalis or cocoon, it sucks the last little bit of juice out of the cricket, and then it buries itself in the ground, and then it emerges as a wasp. So one of the interesting things about these Rapallosomatid cricket assassin wasps is that they live on the outside of the cricket. So there's tons of parasitoids. Parasitoid meaning it eventually kills its host. It's not like you get a tick that's a parasite. It doesn't kill you, but a parasitoid eventually kills its host. Most parasitoids live inside of the creature that they victimize. But a very few live on the outside. And so that's one of the things that I find really interesting about these cricket assassin wasps. You can pick up a cricket and know whether it's become a victim to this wasp because you can see the wasp larva on the outside of it. Maybe we can throw a picture on the screen or something. I don't know.
Send me one. I can
yeah,
throw it up on the screen.
Remind me to send you one. Anyway, so the Blaschke lab at Union, they'd collected several of these crickets that had been parasitized by rhopalosomatid wasps. And then they did a genetic analysis, and they found that there were two very distinct groups of these larvae, which is interesting because there's only supposed to be one species of this type of wasp in all of North America.
Okay.
And the name of that species is Rhopalosoma nearcticum. And so that's where I come in. And so they've only collected the larva. They've never collected an adult. And they're like, Dr. Blaschke is like, we got to prove what's different about these wasps. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. And so my task was to collect the adults, figure out a way to collect the adults, and then come up with try to find a difference in the adults. That's not just a genetic difference, but a morphological difference, mm-hmm. Something that's different in the appearance,
right? Like an extra
shape.
Leg or shape.
Yeah, like an extra leg or something. Yeah. That's not, it wasn't an extra leg, but yeah, something like that. And so I was able to collect, I think it was 79 specimens of adult Rhopalosoma wasps. And then we were able to genetically analyze them through somebody else's project. And then I spent a bunch of time looking under a microscope at the different parts. We were hoping that'd be something really obvious, like an extra leg. It wasn't. It was it wouldn't have been an extra leg because then it wouldn't be an insect. But
gotcha.
But maybe they're different colors or something. But that wasn't it. And so I spent a bunch of time looking at different attributes, like the distance between their eyes, or like the way the veins of their wings are shaped. Mm-hmm. And we ended up landing on. My project was a preliminary description of a new species. And so we found a slight difference in one of the wing cells in the wing venation. And we said, well, this is a small difference. We're going to go ahead and give the wasp a new name. Okay. But then other people are probably going to have to come along and refine this description. It wasn't like we went straight to Science magazine and said, hey, check it out. Yeah. It was like, well, this is the first step to describing the new species. We've got the specimens. We can tell the difference genetically. There's something different in the wings. And then other people can continue working on that because it was time for me to graduate. I just was emailing with Dr. Blaschke because I knew that you might ask about this. Mm-hmm. And he said that they had a chemistry student who did an analysis of the cuticle, so the skin basically, okay. And found a pretty significant difference. I mean, I guess I shouldn't use the word significant because I haven't done the statistical analysis, but a pretty notable, at least, difference between the two different species groups. And so it's possible that they are identifying each other by smell or something because there's that chemical difference. And that's also preliminary, I assume. I mean, as far as I know, nothing's been published yet, but they're working along, and I got to name it. I named it Rhopalosoma cupressi, which means the Rhopalosoma of Cyprus because of where we found it.
That's very very interesting and cool story to have your name associated with finding a new species of wasp. But two questions with that. One, how does one collect adult wasp?
Oh yeah, I skipped that.
and two, how does one, like you say, you didn't just go to Science magazine and say, hey, check out this new wasp that I found. How does one go about finally saying, okay, this can go into Science magazine, this is a new species of wasp?
Yeah.
Let's go with the first question. How did you collect them?
Yeah, first question, how did I collect them? So we used what's called a malaise trap, which is named after this, I think, Swedish entomologist from the 1920s. Okay. Basically, a malaise trap takes advantage of the fact that a lot of insects, when they encounter an obstacle, their instinct is to fly up to get over the obstacle. So if you've ever seen a wasp in your house, it's up at the top corner of the room. Mm-hmm. Like that's weird because it's trying to get out. Right. And so not all, like beetles fly down, but wasps and flies especially fly up. And that's what we were trying to get, wasps. So we put the Malaise trap out and we check it every other day. That's where what I mentioned earlier of going to Cypress Grove all the time. Mm-hmm. That's where that came in. And so we checked the Malaise trap, and we didn't just find the 70 Rhopalosoma specimens. There were tens of thousands of other insects if you count the little tiny gnats and stuff. Mm-hmm. There were several thousand that we I was actually in the invertebrate zoology class that semester, and so I was also part of sorting through those, and they've done a lot of other really interesting work with the rest of the insects that were also collected.
So where does one put a trap? In the Cypress Grove, at the visitor center, do you just hang it in different trees, different areas? Are these another cricket wasp, cricket assassins?
Yeah.
Do you hang them in trees or on? Because I know most wasp nests are like in the corner of a building.
Sure.
Do you put them. Where would you find these wasps?
Yeah. So the wasps that you're describing that most people are familiar with are paper wasps. Right. And they build their paper mache nest. Mm-hmm. In the wild, they do it in a tree, like in a nook of a tree. But nowadays, you normally see it in like the corner of your garage or something, or a mud dauber wasp nest, on the side of a brick wall or something, right? But there's actually, tens of thousands of other species of wasps that are just hanging out in the forest, doing their own thing. They don't build nests. Instead of building a nest, they do something like lay their egg on a cricket, and then the larva fends for itself. Instead of having a home, it lives on the cricket, right? And so the way we sampled for these is we put the Malaise trap is like a giant tent.
Okay.
And so we put it across a flyway, so like a natural opening where insects might be flying through. So for my year, that was across a creek bed at Cypress Grove. And so we put it across the creek bed because there's no trees there, and so it's more likely that insects are going to fly through there. Okay. Because there's less obstacles. And so it's kind of, if you're watching the video, it's kind of like shaped like up and down like a wall, and then like an awning at the top, and then there's two jars full of alcohol on either end of the awning. And so they fly up and they get caught in that awning and then go to end up in either jar and fall in, and they're full of alcohol to preserve them, so we don't have a jar full of live insects.
So those jars, they have I guess one way in, no way out. Or once they land in alcohol,
theoretically they could probably get out, but most insects are gonna not be. They're gonna end up once they touch the alcohol. They're done for.
and the second question, like you said, you can't just call up Science Magazine and say I found a new species of wasps. How did we get to that point of here's a new species of wasps? This can go around the world now.
Yeah, so you got to build that scientific consensus, and so like the first step of that is there was a kind of the research that led up to where I came in, was published in a paper called Miller et al. 2019 that was published in the Journal of Hymenopteran Research. So Hymenoptera is the group of insects that includes wasps, bees, and like sawflies and ants. Okay, so you wouldn't probably go to Science Magazine for a new species of insect. There's too much. That's one of the most prestigious journals in the world for science. But something like the Journal of Hymenoptera Research, well, that's right up their alley, right? They'd probably be very keen on publishing something like that. And in fact, they did publish that paper. And so I imagine at some point there will probably be another paper probably submitted to the Journal of Hymenopteran Research, but maybe somewhere else. Like I was just reading looking at the abstract for an article about fireflies, and it was like the Coleopteran Journal or something like that, which is beetles, because it was a firefly. Fireflies are beetles. So. And
I joked with you about this. I was like, you found a whole new species of wasp. Why didn't you just call it the Darius Mullin, whatever? Yeah. Why not that?
It's frowned upon to name something after yourself. Yeah.
So don't have the Darius wasps at Cypress Grove. But you are the one that assisted in this can we say discovered a new species of wasp? Is that safe to say?
You could, but I would always give the caveat that like I just came in and kind of built on somebody else's pre-existing research, and somebody else is coming along and building on my existing research. I mean, that's how science works, right? Like we like to think of the like lone genius kind of like just figuring things out, but the lone genius is always building on something, and then other people are making significant developments on what they did too.
But the name stays.
Yeah, I came up with the name.
That part. That's what we're getting to. You came up with the name.
Yes.
So anytime somebody mentions this specific name of this wasp, Darius Mullin is the one who came up with that.
Yeah.
So back to Cypress Grove, as a whole. Again, I told you I visited Cypress Grove, and I walked the boardwalk and walked over to where, if you haven't visited Cypress Grove, you should. And it's better to be there to know what I'm talking about, but I can describe it. So the boardwalk goes to the opening of a lake, and there's a little walkway. And then when I got there, I looked and I saw like an observation tower. Mm-hmm. So we're on this topic of wasps. I haven't been back to that observation tower since the first time I went, mainly because when I walked over there, in the top corner of the top floor was this huge wasp. It was probably one of those, I don't know.
Paper wasps or something? Yeah.
And I let wasps do their thing. Mm-hmm. Bees, I love bees. I love what they do. Wasps, it's a different story. I've been stung by wasps before. Got to the observation tower, saw that wasp nest, never been back to the observation tower.
Okay.
I do want to go back, and I plan to go back ever since our maintenance department did some upgrades to it. It looks a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go back. But that is the reason I have not been back that far yet. So there are wasps at Cypress Grove, clearly. We discovered them. So for those of you who want to visit Cypress Grove, don't do what I did and wait so many years to go back. Go check it out. Check out the observation tower.
And hey, if you see like a giant wasp nest or something, let me know. We can take care of it.
Exactly. We can take care of it. And who knows, it might be a new species of wasp.
Maybe it is.
So, like I said, that was my only time making it that far. I'll be back. I love Cypress Grove. We talked about the solitude of it. Just walking the boardwalk, it's just peaceful. It's wetlands, like you said, but you're surrounded by trees and wetlands on this boardwalk, and it's just a peaceful place to go and just sit and enjoy. Yeah. Have you found yourself, on downtimes walking the boardwalk just to experience the peace and tranquility of Cypress Grove?
Yeah, there have been times where I've done that. I stay pretty busy working on stuff, but sometimes it's like it's after lunch and you got the afternoon sleepies or something, and you're like, you know what? I need to go walk or something.
Walk. Me, when it's sunny outside, I'll step outside after lunch and just walk around City Hall. Got a lot of buildings around here, but to be able to walk the boardwalk, I can only imagine how nice it is, especially around this time when it's nice outside. So Cypress Grove, it's coming up on 40 years, and jokingly I say this because I'm also coming up on 40 years. October 1985, I believe, is what the plaque says.
That's right.
Cypress Grove. So you are going to be a part of the 40-year anniversary of Cypress Grove. How excited are you about it now that, full circle from you doing your research, now you're the recreation coordinator for Cypress Grove. How excited are you about being able to be a part of the 40-year anniversary?
Yeah, I'm thrilled. I love Cypress Grove. I love that it's been a part of our community for that long. It's just very exciting to get to be a part of recognizing something that's a very important part of our park system. And so I'm really excited about getting to show Cypress Grove some extra love this year. 40 years is also just a long time for something like that to exist. And so I was going to say also, what was I going to say? Oh, also recognize some of the people who have come before me and in making Cypress Grove what it is, and getting it started.
Like for instance, Ms. Sandy McDermott, the education building that's out there. It's named after her. We did the dedication for her a few years ago. She was a huge part of Cypress Grove. She loved that place.
Yeah.
So we named the education building after her. She's just one of the many in the 40 years that Cypress Grove has been in existence. Yeah. And again, the visitors that come through for a park of that caliber, of that nature, no pun intended, to be 40 years and still, bringing in the visitors. There's a lot more coming in the future. Of course, we got some upgrades coming to Cypress Grove.
Yeah.
Boardwalk and trying to get to reopen one of the ones that's closed. But as far as we talked about the education center, what do you provide for those, if there are students who want to come or field trips? What all do you have over there? What all do you provide?
Yeah, so I've had a lot of people reach out to me for like a guided nature walk. So that's something I've done with a lot of different school groups, private school, public school, and homeschool already. And and I haven't even advertised that, but people reach out to me and I say, yeah, absolutely. Come on, just tell me when you're coming. And so I love getting to do that and talk to them about our birds, or I can tailor it to different things that they're learning about in science class. So one time I had somebody say, hey, we just read a book where an eastern cottonwood is featured heavily. And I was like, well, let me show you some of the eastern cottonwoods in the park. So stuff like that. So I love getting to do that. We've also had people come and do owl pellet dissections at Cypress Grove in the classroom. So an owl pellet, if you don't know, a lot of birds do this, but owls swallow they eat their prey whole. They tear up the mouse or whatever, and then they eat the whole bits, and then they can't digest all of the fur and bones, and so their body makes a little pellet, and then they cough it back up, and then you can go through the pellet and see what it's been eaten. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend just doing that with a pellet that you find on the ground somewhere. Right. And I do actually find them on the boardwalk every once in a while because we have barred owls in the park. We also have red-shouldered hawks in the park, probably other species too, but those are the two that I see the most. So sometimes I'll just find a pellet on the ground or something, and you can kind of see, oh, it looks like it was eating a crayfish or something, or part of a fish. Anyway, so you can order them, and they're sanitized professionally. And then it's a great first dissection for kids because, cutting open a frog or something, that's a psychological barrier, right? It's a good thing for somebody to do throughout the course of their education. I'd advocate for that to be part of any high school curriculum. But if you just jump right into that, it's going to be hard for a lot of kids. But an owl pellet is not actually a full creature. Right. And so you can pull it apart and you can see, it's like detective work. Like what was this owl eating before it cast this pellet? That's what's called casting, before it coughed it up. And so that's a lot of fun. So we've hosted several owl pellet dissections at the classroom building.
So are these things that you bring in, or the teachers who are over the students, they have it and they just want to do it at Cypress Grove? I've
had both. We have some owl pellets that we ordered, but I've also had people bring their own. I'm happy to do either one, at least right now. If you're listening to this in 2 years, maybe we've kind of changed. Maybe we had a huge influx of people wanting to do owl pellets and we just couldn't keep up. But I'd like to start offering more regular programs at the park. I've had a lot of kind of just getting my crap together at Cypress Grove to do over the past year or so. But we did have an event for the Great Backyard Bird Count not too long ago. I figured you were going to, yeah. So the Great Backyard Bird Count is a citizen science initiative through, I believe it's a partnership between the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, Birds Canada, and the Audubon Society. And it's a huge global citizen science initiative for people to go out and just do a 15-minute, count all the birds you see, which species and how many, for 15 minutes at some point during this weekend. And then you get this massive amount of data from all the just hobby bird watchers, or birders as they like to be called, for one day every year. And so we did, the idea was to do that for Jackson's shared backyard, Cypress Grove Nature Park. And so we did that. We were going to do 2, but We had a huge rainstorm and there was some flooding, and we ended up having to cancel the one that was on Saturday, but we did go ahead with the one that was on Monday. And it was a great hit. I'd love to do at least the Great Backyard Bird Count every year, but also maybe some more bird counts throughout the year and other similar things.
So was this the first time that this has happened in Jackson?
Well, it happens everywhere. Okay. Anybody,
I mean, like, is this the first? It happens anywhere, but like, is this the first time that we've ever done it in Jackson where it's this caliber of
like an official event?
Yes, an official event.
I mean, I don't know of anybody else who's done one. Okay. It's the first time it's happened at Cypress Grove, as far as I know. Okay. Like I did when I taught 6th grade science, I had them do the Great Backyard Bird Count at Augustine School when I was teaching there. So like I know it's been done in Jackson, but I don't know if anybody for like the city or anything has ever done an official event around it.
And especially at Cypress, probably at Cypress.
Yeah.
Okay. So I can just do it on my own when I want to. Okay. So it's
So like some random person who just loves birding might have done a Great Backyard Bird Count count at Cypress Grove. That could have happened dozens of times.
Gotcha,
I mean, I haven't.
Gotcha.
I suppose I could probably get on eBird, which is kind of like iNaturalist, but specifically for birds.
So naturalists have something for everything.
Yeah, Bug Guide, eBird. There's you name it. There's probably some dedicated website or app for it.
And I mean, with Cypress Grove, we've got a whole bunch of different species of animals trees and plants and things like that. So I highly recommend these enthusiasts, birds, insects, to come out to Cypress Grove and talk to you, and you can just, hey, park's yours, look for the birds, look for the insects.
Tell me what you see.
Tell me what you see, and say you write it down and put it on the log for Cypress Grove. Say, hey, we have this here, something.
Yeah.
There are probably species that you haven't seen yet. Out there.
Oh, for sure. I mean, there's so I'll throw this stat out there since we're talking about the biodiversity, how many species there are. When some of the folks at Union have done for the Malaise trap that we were talking about earlier, species accumulation curves, which is basically where they add up the number of new species that they're finding across the sample period. Okay. And then you can look at the trend of like, have we found all of them, or are we going to continue finding them? So based on that, they think that, there's dozens of different families of wasps. Mm-hmm. There's this one family called the ichneumon wasps. And they think that there's more than 100 species of ichneumon wasps in Cypress Grove. Not to mention all the beetles, moths, all the other wasps, all the mammals, birds, plants, fungi. There's tons of stuff at Cypress Grove. I'm always seeing new stuff. I've had visitors who have seen a critter and then told me, and I'm like, I've never seen that here. Just the other day, somebody told me that they saw a great horned owl at I almost said Mark Twain Cave at Cypress Grove years ago, and I've never seen a great horned owl in the park. The only owls I've seen are barred owls, but barred owls are apparently more likely to be active during the day, and so that's probably why I've never seen one of the great horned owls. They're probably there, and they're just hiding during the day.
And speaking of daytime, I can only imagine what Cypress Grove is at night, all the critters that come out. I mean, there's not much light pollution, so you don't get that, but all the nocturnal animals that we probably don't know that's out there. I can only imagine.
They used to do night hikes at Cypress Grove, and that's something I'd love to bring back at some point. I mean, like I said, there's a ton of programming ideas that I have that, I don't want to overpromise.
Gotcha. But you definitely have a future ideas for Cypress Grove.
Yeah, one thing...
Go ahead.
One thing is there's this newly described species of a firefly called the Cypress firefly that was described in 2019 in Mississippi. And the West Tennessee stewardship ecologist Alan Trentley has told me about how a few years ago, and Christy has told me about this too because she was involved as well. They went out there and they found this new species of firefly at Cypress Grove. Mm-hmm. I've never seen it because I wouldn't know how to identify it. Apparently, it has a very distinct flash pattern when it flashes its light. But I was talking with Alan Trentley, and hopefully we'll be able to go back and he can point it out to me, and maybe we can do night hikes in the future and show that off to people. It's listed as vulnerable on the what is it, IUCN Red List.
Okay.
Whatever the organization's called that determines whether something's endangered.
Wow. So the future of Cypress Grove, especially after 40 years of existence, it's bright. And having you on, Darius, to have the knowledge and the past history with Cypress Grove, it's your calling. You're there for a reason, and I think we're all grateful for having you there at Cypress Grove to teach us about the different species and the knowledge that you have. So thank you for wanting to be a part of Cypress Grove. And I appreciate you coming on the East Main 101.
Well, thanks so much. That's very kind.
So, as always, it's time for our pop quiz. And our pop quiz it's a segment where we just ask 3 questions of our guests just to get them to know them a little bit better. So, got 3 questions for you. Pop quiz question number 1. If you could instantly master any skill that you don't currently have, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I had an answer for this, but it just occurred to me that if I could identify any insect ever, that'd be awesome because there are so many. But the answer I was going to give is cello.
Cello.
Cello is one of the most beautiful instruments, and it would be awesome to be able to play it.
So do you play any instrument?
I play piano mostly. I also know a little guitar, ukulele, mandolin.
Okay.
Play
so
kazoo.
You like the string? You love the kazoo. So you're a string instrument. You like string instruments a lot.
I do, but piano is what I've I took piano lessons for years. At first, very much against my will, but shout out to my mom and dad for making that happen. I appreciate it now.
I've got a funny story about piano. I can make it quick. I was a kid, and piano lessons were after school, and it was the second floor, and outside the window was the playground. During my piano lessons, my class or my group after school class were at the playground, and I didn't want to be inside. I wanted to be at the playground. I was a kid.
Yeah, of course.
So I quit. But full circle, high school, I ended up coming back to play the trumpet. So
nice.
I love music.
That's a good one too.
I love playing the trumpet, and sometimes I think about picking it back up. But until then, I'll just continue to listen to it.
Yeah.
So the cello, that's an amazing thing. Do you think you will ever decide to pick it up and try it out?
I don't know. I mean, I'm a pretty busy guy. I don't know if cellos are expensive.
Yeah, they are. I mean, I can just, if ever you do it, I can just imagine you taking it with you to Cypress Grove, just sitting on the boardwalk.
That'd be great. That'd be pretty cool.
I can just imagine that'll be pretty awesome. So the cello, that's awesome.
It's such a beautiful instrument.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, pop quiz question number 2. Other than East Main 101,
my number one.
Your number one favorite podcast? Do you listen to podcasts, and if so, do you have a favorite? And if you don't have a favorite, what are some of the podcasts you listen to?
Yeah, I do listen to podcasts. At one point it occurred to me that if I drive 15 minutes to work, then I can get 30 minutes of podcast listening in every day, which is about the average podcast episode length. Mm-hmm. And I like learning new things, and so all my favorite podcasts are podcasts that I'm learning something. I love. If you want to listen to a podcast just to be entertained by some people talking or something, that's great. Entertainment is a great purpose of podcasts, but I want to learn something. And so some of my favorite podcasts, I have been listening to East Main 101 recently, especially because I knew I was going to be on this. I also like the Science Versus podcast. They just do a lot of cool, kind of science myth busting, and very thorough, and they cite all their references. There's a podcast called Ologies, where this science journalist interviews experts in all sorts of different science fields. So I listened to one about fire ecology recently. That's pretty interesting. The Missouri Department of Conservation does a great podcast called Nature Boost, and it's just little normally 15, 20 minute long podcasts about something like bears or beavers. What else? I like a good music journalism podcast. Well, now that I said that, I'm blanking on any.
Oh, it's all good.
But
you mentioned that
interviews with music. Song Exploder is a great one. They go in and they talk. They go super in depth on a specific song. So they've done Never Gonna Give You Up. They've done the Stranger Things theme song and everything in between. And it's just deep dive on how a specific song was made. That's a good music journalism podcast.
So it's cool that you say you like podcasts where you're learning something. That is exactly what East Main 101 is. It's
yeah.
for citizens to learn more about our city employees and what they do and just who they are. Because behind the organization, there are people. And Cypress Grove, part of the Parks and Recreation organization, we've got a person who's running the show at Cypress Grove. So awesome. I'm gonna check out that it's Song Exploder.
Yeah.
I
heard about it on a different podcast, and then I went and listened, and I was like, "This is awesome."
I'm gonna check that one out. All right, pop quiz question number 3: what is the most unforgettable wildlife encounter you have ever experienced?
I've had a lot of cool encounters. Most unforgettable. One of the most unforgettable experiences was when I was doing my internship with the Missouri Department of Conservation. I was out in a kayak at this place called Beaver Marsh in the middle of nowhere, northeast Missouri, and I was checking our traps for crayfish, and I pulled this trap out of the water, and I set it on the kayak, and then I noticed right behind me, probably like 10 feet away, there's a river otter poking its head out of the water and looking at me, and I just froze, and me and this river otter are looking at each other, and after like several seconds, I'm like, I wonder if he'll stay still for me to get a picture. And then as soon as I move an inch, he's gone. But that was just a cool moment, just unexpected. It was the first time I'd ever seen an otter. Okay. And I've seen more since then, but I'd never seen one before. And so that was an unforgettable, just frozen moment,
And it's your frozen moment because there's no pictures of that otter.
There's no pictures. That I took.
So it wasn't the fact that you took any of its food, or it just popped up out the water?
I don't know. I mean, I didn't see it come out of the water. Okay. So, I was focusing on what I was working on, and then all of a sudden I realized it was watching me. So I don't know how long it had been there, or if maybe, I think sometimes animals pop out, and then as soon as they notice, like turtles do this at Cypress Grove all the time. Yeah. Like they stick their head out of the water, and then they're like, oh my gosh, there's a person there. It might have been what the otter was doing. Like, he was frozen too.
I don't think I've ever seen one. Like, I mean, see them at aquariums or whatnot, but like out in person in their natural habitat. That's a cool experience, man. So no weird experiences in caves or anything. No are animals like? Were there any weird animals in these caves that you worked at?
There were some. There's one common thing that you find in caves are salamanders. We didn't have a ton of salamanders in Mark Twain Cave or Cameron Cave, and the explanation I'd heard was because salamanders, like frogs or toads, they lay their eggs in standing water, and there wasn't a lot of standing water in Mark Twain Cave or Cameron Cave, so we didn't have very many salamanders. But one thing that we did see a lot were cave crickets, which of course were interesting to me, being a bug guy. Okay. They look kind of like mutant spider crickets. Sometimes you get them in your cellar, if you have a basement. But we saw those in the cave. And then, of course, bats. We had a lot of little brown bats and big brown bats that I saw. And then not Mark Twain Cave, but Hannibal, Missouri specifically, or Hannibal broadly, is home to, there's this endangered species of bat called the Indiana bat. And it's like something like a third of all the Indiana bats that are left in the world live in Hannibal in these abandoned limestone quarries that are near the cave. I never saw one of those in the caves I worked in, but I did see little brown bats and big brown bats. Those are cool.
Darius Mullin, the recreation coordinator for Cypress Grove Nature Park. Again, thank you for coming on East Main 101. I'm looking forward to 40 years and beyond for Cypress Grove and all the things that you have in mind, your ideas. I'm looking forward to putting that press release out about these events. The nighttime hike, that will be an awesome event whenever we open back up. Because again,
I got to do it now.
I can only imagine the critters that are out there at nighttime. Darius Mullin, again, thank you for coming on East Main 101.
Thanks so much for having me. I had a great time.
Appreciate you. That does it for East Main 101, Lesson 28. Don't forget to follow us on all of our government social media accounts and opt in to our text alerts by visiting connect.jacksontn.gov. Also, be sure to visit eastmain101.jacksontn.gov to subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or Apple podcast channels to listen to each lesson in its entirety. Before we go, there is homework. Homework, visit Cypress Grove Nature Park. It's off Airways Boulevard. It's a beautiful place. Check it out. Look it up on our website, jacksontn.gov. So until next lesson, Class dismissed.